and she was at a place of depression, and she was wanting to commit suicide, but she didn't want to commit suicide because then her family wouldn't get the insurance money.
Mm.
So she wanted to stage it in a way that made it look like an accident. So she had devised a plan in her mind, but she needed some help. And so she asked her friend if her friend would help her
Mm.
carry out this plan. She's just horrified. And she
Mm.
said, I will help you, but here's my condition. I
Mm.
will help you, but before we carry out this plan, you have to go to church with me.
Hello and welcome to Reaching the Rest podcast, episode 4. This podcast was inspired by a desire to connect on a deeper level with global workers around the world, to get to know those with boots on the ground that have dedicated their lives to fulfilling the Great Commission, and to hear their stories. My name is Amy Clausen, and I'm the missions director at Bethel's Rock Church in Minnesota. In today's episode, we have the honor of speaking with Keith Garner, who lives and serves in the Philippines. Hi, Keith. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Amy. It's so glad to have you. And thanks for doing this for missions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to get us started, can you just kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, about your family, about your ministry?
All right. Well, as you said, my name is Keith Garner. I have a wife, Delcy. We will be celebrating 26 years of marriage here in November.
Congratulations.
We have one adult son who actually lives in the Twin Cities,
Hmm.
he and his wife, and they just had their first baby just
Oh,
about 2 months ago. So we
wow.
are brand new grandparents. So we're
Yes.
excited about that. And grew up in grew up as a pastor's kid. Grew up around ministry. Grew up in the church. My wife was born and raised here in the Philippines, and we actually met on a missions trip. I went to North Central University. I actually played basketball with Pastor James.
Oh, wow.
Uh, we, we were teammates, and we came on a trip to the Philippines together.
Oh, my goodness.
And it was while we were there, I met a young gal who was assigned to me to be my interpreter on one
Okay.
of the places that we stopped, and that's how we became acquainted, became pen pals, and wrote for 4 years before we ended up getting married.
Wow.
Um, so after I graduated, I served 4 years on the island of Saipan
Mm.
before we came back to the States and did some youth pastoring and then pastored in 2 churches before we started our missions journey here in the Philippines.
That's great. Wow. So, okay, do the math for me a little bit. So, how long would you consider yourself to have been on the missions field as a missionary?
Well, we began our missions journey to come here with Asia Pacific Media in 2017.
Okay.
So you'd say we're approaching about 7 years that we've been on this
Yeah.
journey.
Yeah. Very cool. And can you describe your call to missions? I would assume that it has to do with that missions trip, potentially, or maybe it was before that missions trip. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, it was before.
Okay.
My original call to missions actually happened when I was age 12,
Wow.
and was at a youth camp, and it was on the last night during the altar service. I was just up at the altar, just praying and just seeking the Lord, just having that moment with the Lord. And I was just right of center of the stage, leaning up against the stage, and the speaker was up there just kind of praying, walking
Mm.
back and forth. And he just stops, and he stops at the pulpit, and everybody just stopped. He said, "Just right now, I just feel that God is calling somebody to missions right now."
Wow.
And I hadn't been praying about that. I hadn't
Mm.
nothing like that. But as soon as he said that, my heart exploded.
Hmm.
It's you, or it's me. It's
Yeah.
me. And and that was kind of the first start of it. And
Mm.
there was a quite a long journey to that over the next 8 years.
Yeah.
Uh, but it took about 8 years where I was just really seeking God. Uh, like I left that camp really excited about missions.
Yeah.
Being 12 years old, not having paid any attention to what was going on in church or just observing like that. So as I reached my teen years, began to see what my father was dealing with as in ministry and stuff
Yeah.
like that. And I said, God, I don't want to volunteer for this. If you want me to do it, I will.
Yeah.
Um, but you're going to have to confirm it for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it took me about 8 years for me to discern God's call. And there was a big,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of trials of faith. I almost got to the place where uh, almost believed that God wasn't speaking because I wasn't understanding how God was speaking to me. But it
Mm,
took about
yeah.
8 years for that to kind of become clear to me before I really set on
Sure.
my journey by going to North Central and
Mm.
pursuing my studies.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So, what advice would you give to somebody who is interested in missions? Maybe they even, their heart is being pulled towards missions, but they don't know for sure if they're called, or they're kind of um, either waiting for a confirmation, or they're not sure, if something was a confirmation, because it sounds like you have quite a bit of experience with that.
Yeah. I think number one is if you have the interest in it, but you're not sure you're called, is
Mm,
just be involved
yeah.
and be involved with it however it is that you can be involved and you feel that you're able to.
Mm-hmm.
Just immerse yourself, apply yourself to it, and then God is going to speak. And be open to God not speaking just one particular way.
Mm,
Um, and then usually what I found is that God is going to confirm it through other people,
yeah.
specifically your church,
Mm-hmm.
that they're going to affirm that message in the long run. And that I think that's really a big part of the call is that being recognized and affirmed by your leadership
Yeah.
and those people who are around you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just say, just get in and work hard with it, apply it. You're doing a work for the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
We're all sent, but we're not necessarily all called,
Yeah.
to do something like this, And so by your just being involved with it, you're not out of God's will by doing that,
Right.
by being involved and working or giving or praying
Mm-hmm.
or doing whatever you can to help the missions endeavor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just be involved, and then God will speak.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
You
that's
know.
good. So, you talked about having that moment with God where you knew that He was calling you when you were 12 years old, but that it was that 8-year kind of process of getting that confirmation and getting that ministry experience. Can you talk more about that? What did that journey look like? Maybe kind of part one, the journey before you got to North Central, and it sounds like that's kind of the point where you're like, okay, I'm gonna go for this. And then that part two
Mhm.
of, okay, once you had decided I'm gonna go for this, what that piece looked like between, that whole training portion, preparation portion before you actually, stepped foot.
Okay. Yeah. So it's at the age of 12, super excited, as I said, super excited. Then probably around 14, 15, had began to question, okay, God,
Mm,
I need, I want to do this, but I need to know that it was you and not just some emotional experience or just me
yeah.
thinking it. Really began to seek God. And then I began to get disillusioned with God because he didn't answer in the same way he spoke to me at the age of 12.
Mm,
And so I was expecting him to, my heart to explode
yeah.
and, have all this. I was specifically expecting him to answer in that one specific way.
Hmm.
And I prayed and I prayed and I began to get frustrated with God because he wasn't answering. Because in my
Mm,
heart, I wanted to do this.
yeah.
I wanted to do it. I wanted him to call me. I wanted to do this, but I didn't want to do it if he didn't call me.
Right.
And when he didn't, I began to get frustrated. And by the time I reached my junior, senior year of high school,
Mm,
I had almost gotten to the part, well, God, why don't you confirm it?
mm,
Maybe I didn't hear you. Maybe I can't really hear you. Maybe you don't really speak, because if you
mm,
really speak, why wouldn't you confirm something you spoke to me so powerfully?
yeah.
So I came to a crisis. I came really to a
Mm,
crisis of faith,
mm-hmm.
my senior year of high school. And then following that, the next 2 years, when I was just going to community college, um, and I'd gotten to the place where I became almost agnostic. I didn't become atheistic. I just believed
Yeah.
we couldn't know God.
Mm.
God didn't speak. We didn't know God.
Mm-hmm.
I still went to church out of respect for my mom and dad. As pastors, I still went to church. I was still involved, but it was not a real faith relationship with me.
Sure.
I was just there going through the motions.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, it was through a breakup of a long-term relationship that I had.
Mm.
I had quit praying. I quit reading my Bible. And through a breakup of relationship, I just said, Lord, I said, if this isn't for you, then let her find somebody else and let her just be really happy.
Mm.
And 2 days later, we're on a phone call, and she says, Keith, she says, I found somebody else, and I'm just really happy. And
Wow.
I was just like, wow. I said, okay, God, um, maybe you do,
Yeah.
maybe you do speak. And so
Mm-hmm.
there was a spark in my faith to that,
Mm-hmm.
and so I was finishing up my junior college. I was looking for a school to go to. I had an interest in meteorology. I was going to, if I didn't go into ministry, I was going to go into meteorology
Mm-hmm.
at the University of Missouri. And but this began a journey where I said, okay, Lord, if you want me to go into ministry, if you want me to go into missions, I need you to confirm it.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a series of events that were really um, interesting. Um, there was a song at the time called "Will You Be the One to Answer to His Call?" And after I prayed that prayer, I immediately went outside and got in my truck when I was going to go down to the store, which is just 2 blocks away from my house. I get in the car, and I never listened to Christian radio at the time. I was a country music fan, and I just got in the car and I just switched it over to the Christian radio station, which I hadn't listened to in years,
Yeah.
and that song is on. Will
Mm.
you be the one to answer to His call? And I just prayed this.
Wow.
And I was like, God, that's just a coincidence. And so I went down, I went into the store. I was in the store maybe 3 minutes. I come back out and I turn on the car again, my truck again, and the radio pops on. And will you be the one to answer to his call? I said, God, that's just a coincidence. I said, I need something more solid than that. I'm not just going to base it upon a radio call.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so there's a series of events that are like this that
Mm.
I deemed as coincidences.
Yeah.
And it so happened that there was a friend of mine in my youth group. He was my age, but I really respected him. He had just this phenomenal relationship with the Lord.
Mm.
And so one night I prayed, God, if you want me to go into missions, I want you to have Mark confirm it for me.
Mm.
And I prayed that prayer. And after I prayed that prayer, Mark disappeared. Mark quit coming to church.
Wow.
Nobody knew where Mark was at.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, okay, God. I said, that's fine. You've had your chance. Given you your chance to confirm this for me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to pursue my own thing. And I applied to University of Missouri. Had everything set up. All I had to do was to send in my housing deposit.
Mm-hmm.
This was getting into late July, and so 3 months later, late July, we live next door to the church. It's a Sunday evening. It's about 5 minutes after service starts. I'm running a little bit late. I'm walking out the back door, pulling the door closed, and the phone rings.
Mm.
And I wasn't going to answer the phone because I was running late. Then I
Mm-hmm.
said, well, maybe it's something for dad,
Sure.
somebody calling for dad. So I better at least get a good message. So I went back in, I answered the phone, and the voice said, Keith. And I immediately recognized the voice. It was Mark.
Mm.
So after, hey, where you been? What are you doing? Type of stuff. He said, hey, Keith, do you remember about 3 months ago when I was over at your house and we were praying? And I was like, yeah, Mark, I remember that. And he says, well, God told me something about you that night. And he goes, and I was sitting at church this morning and I felt like God was telling me that it's time for me to tell you what he told me about you.
Wow.
So my heart gets beating really quick. I said, Mark, tell me what that was, please. And he says, I'm supposed to tell you that God wants you to go into the ministry.
Wow.
And at that point in time, and I'm not a vision person, I don't really
Mm.
see visions or
Mm.
have visions and stuff like that. But I had a vision in that moment. It was
Mm.
like in the movies where you go into the tunnel of light, you're kind of going back into time, and the tunnel of light, just all these things. And
Yeah.
so I saw the last 8 years, just kind of
Wow.
all of my entire life, last 8 years, just
Mm-hmm.
going before my eyes. And every once in a while, there would be a freeze frame
Hmm.
of a scene,
Yeah.
and I recognized every one of those scenes.
Hmm.
I remembered every one of them, and God was saying, "I was confirming my call here.
Oh,
I was confirming my
wow.
call here. I was confirming my call
Yeah.
here. I was speaking to you here." And almost every one of those was through conversations I was having with people, which is why I was
Mm-hmm.
saying God's going to confirm the call through other
Yep.
people. And it was through conversations, whether it be a missionary that we had over at the house, asking me certain questions, about he'd go around the table and talk to my brother and sister and say, "What are you going to do? Or what are you going to do? What are you going to do when you grow up? What's your interest?" And he would come to me and say, "You know what? What about ministry?" And he would talk to ministry about me.
Yeah.
I'm the one he would talk to ministry about.
Mm-hmm.
It was just various conversations that I had during time. And so it was that point in time, I ended up at North Central.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, to sum it up, that I ended up at North Central.
Yeah.
And so,
Wow. Very cool.
so from there at North Central, um, missions at that time, missions has changed a lot since
Mm.
then. Because back then, in order to be a missionary, you had to be ordained.
Mm.
You had to have been a senior pastor for
Oh,
at least
wow.
2 years
Okay.
before you could be accepted into mission.
Hmm.
By the time I got to North Central, they were starting to change. They were starting to loosen that up a little bit.
Okay.
And so I kind of felt like, looking at that, I kind of felt like, well, I think that experience is kind of beneficial.
Mm.
And so I didn't go the missions degree route. I went a
Sure.
pastoral route
Yeah.
because I was going to go do the pastoral stuff first. So I graduated with a pastoral degree
Mm-hmm.
in 1996, along with Pastor James. And when I graduated, I didn't feel like I was ready
Mm.
to go pastor church someplace, take on a small church and preach 3 times a week and do all that. I just
Yeah.
didn't think I was ready for that. It scared the liver out of me, actually. And so I began looking for opportunities, and we had a guest speaker in chapel come from the island of Saipan. He was a
Mm.
pastor. They had a church there, and they had a private school,
Mm-hmm.
and he was recruiting teachers.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, Amy, is I always said the one thing I would never do is I'd never be a youth pastor. I said that's the one thing I will never do. Um, and I don't know why, the incoherency of the logic of a young person, right? So I said I never want to be a young person, so I accepted a position of being a a high school and junior high Bible teacher and basketball coach at a
Nice.
Christian school on the island of Saipan, which is basically working with youth. And so I get over there, out of my element,
Mm-hmm.
different culture, and 6 weeks into it, the youth pastor resigns. And my pastor comes to me and says, "Hey, congratulations." I said, "On what?" He says, "You're the new youth pastor." And I said, "No, Pastor Ray, I don't want to be youth
Yeah.
pastor." He says, "Well, you've got the Bible degree, you've
Mm-hmm.
got the license to preach, so
Yep.
you are the new pastor and school chaplain." And again, I was just horrified about what it was going to be.
Mm.
And so we got into it, and the next 4 years, just God just did some amazing things.
Yeah.
The youth group exploded. We had amazing move of God. I got married during that time. Our son was born,
Hmm.
and after our son was born, we uh, didn't know that we was really going to be able to afford to stay there because we was making
Mm-hmm.
about $7,000 a year. Um, and so I was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to afford taking care of a family on that. So we began looking for opportunities. We ended up back in the States as an
Okay.
associate pastor. And at that point in time, my heart was missions. I was like, okay, when's
Mm.
the next time, God, the next place we're going to do is we're going to go to missions.
Yep.
That was our heart. So we ended up at this church. We were youth pastoring there. We were there about 2 years before a church, a small church north of Kansas City, called us and said, our pastor just retired. He recommended you to us. Would you come be our senior pastor? And I'm like, I really want to do missions, but okay, we'll come and do it.
Yeah.
And so we're there for 6 years, and
Okay.
we are there. And again, we'd actually had sent off for an application for AGWM missions, had gotten that in the mail, and it was like this thick. And I looked at it, and I began working on it, and I was like, oh man, this
Mhm.
is so much, and 27 personal references for each of us, and
Wow.
all these different things. I'm just like, oh my goodness. And it just kind of sat on my desk. I never did really work on it. So we
Mm.
were there 6 years
Wow.
before a church in Illinois called us over. And again, we were
Mm.
like, missions is going to be our next spot. And so we
Yep.
went and interviewed at this church. And they said, so what are your long-term plans? I said, I just want you to know I am called to missions at some
Yeah.
point. I'm going to be at missions.
Mhm.
Um, and so I just don't know when that's going to
Mhm.
be. So they invited us. We accepted the position to be their pastor in Illinois. And while we were there, I'll be honest with you, Amy, it's not that our heart for missions died, because every
Mm.
time we had a missionary, my heart was like, oh, I could do that. I could
Yeah.
do that. I would love to do that.
Mhm.
I could see myself doing it. I could do that. But that obsession where it was in my mind all the time,
Mhm.
the next part of it kind of all went dormant. I was
Hmm.
just really satisfied, really content
Yeah.
in my ministry. We had a great church. They loved us. We loved them. They took care of our family so very well.
Mm.
Um, we were just enjoying it so well. And so the idea was, the call to mission was just kind of in the background,
Yeah.
and we were just kind of content, and we were just all in on being pastors.
Mhm.
And so we had been there almost 10 years, about 9 years, and we were starting a building program,
Mm.
and we went through this entire process of determining what we was going to do. We finally passed the vote. We was going to begin to raise money and start a building program. And so we started it, and we called it our dream. That was our dream. And
Mm.
our dream Sunday, the third Sunday of the month, we called Dream Sunday, which is where
Mm.
everybody we'd give our update on the giving,
Yeah.
and just cast the vision for the dream.
Mhm.
We've been into it. We'd raised, $250,000 already, and uh, it was the Dream Sunday. And usually I had a board member give the update, and this Sunday he was gone.
Mm.
And so I was given the update. I don't know if they're being rah rah. Hey, thank you guys for your faithfulness. God is so good. $250,000, all this
Mm.
type of stuff. Thank you for your faithfulness. And we're going to build our dream and stuff like
Mhm.
that. And I felt the Spirit speak to me. You're not going to build it.
Oof.
And I went into a spirit. Here I am, 2 minutes before I preach, and I'm
Yeah.
in I'm in a spiritual tailspin.
Yeah.
I'm like, God, what do you mean we're not going to build it? We've seen your hand move. Like, we've
Mhm.
had committee after committee. We've had this amazing vote. We have all these things
Mhm.
where we thought you've spoken and you've led us. Where did I miss you? Where did I miss you? Where did I miss you? Where did I
Yeah.
miss you on this? And so I'm up there preaching, but in my mind, I'm just in this tailspin,
Mhm.
questioning, arguing with God again about His voice. And this lasted. So I go into this funk again, this spiritual funk, for about 6 months, where I'm just
Mm.
wrestling with the Lord. Lord, I
Yeah.
don't understand. I don't
Mhm.
understand. And I went to a coaching seminar that the district was putting on, and as one of the exercises, we came back from one of the breaks, and the instructor said, is anybody stuck?
Mm.
And with something that maybe we can just kind of talk you through. I said, I got a situation. So I sat down in the middle, and everybody began to ask me questions. And the questions were good, but none of the questions really moved the needle or anything,
Mm.
until this one guy asked the question. He said, what makes you think that the you are not going to build this is singular, or is plural,
Mm.
and is not singular?
Hmm.
And when he said that, it was like everything, the whole paradigm, everything just, I felt this shift in my spirit.
Mm.
And when that happened, everything about missions came flooding back into my heart
Wow.
again. And it wasn't that the church had missed the call. It was
Yeah.
just that I wasn't going to be the one to
Yeah.
finish the task.
Mhm.
And that began the process. And I did, even though I felt called at the age of 12, I wasn't called to a specific place. I
Mm.
wasn't feel like I didn't say I always knew I was going to be in India or something like
Mm.
that. So I had reached out to one of our missionaries, Bill Snyder, who was actually the founder of Asia Pacific Media. He's a missionary we supported, missionary I just enjoyed talking to. And
Mm-hmm.
I just called him up. I said, Bill, would you help me process? I said, we feel called to missions. We believe that God is possibly leading us to take that step now.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't have a place of ministry. We don't feel called to a specific person or a people group. What's that work? How does it work with AGWM? So
Yeah.
he began just asking me about my experience and
Mm.
been to the Philippines twice, worked in
Yeah.
Asia Pacific on Saipan and had dealt with, people from the different Pacific islands
Mm-hmm.
and all across Asia. My students were all across Asia.
Mm.
He said, well, it sounds like your experience is all Asia. And
Mm.
I said, yeah, that's pretty much. And that's probably where my heart is at.
Yeah.
And somehow or another, the topic of working with Asia Pacific media came up.
Hmm.
And he goes, actually, well, I'm in a transition here. We're needing somebody to come over and begin to take over the leadership of the office here in Manila.
Hmm.
And, and I just said, well, I said, I really like the idea of that, but I said, I'm not a media guy. I
Mm.
said, I've been a pastor. I mean,
Yeah.
I I tinker with the stuff. I love to watch media, but I'm not a technical person. He said,
Mm-hmm.
well, I don't need that. I got a staff of people that
Yeah.
do all that. He goes, I need somebody to come over and pastor the staff, lead the staff,
Mm.
ask questions, cast vision, guard the
Yeah.
vision, empower them to accomplish the vision.
Mm.
And I said, I think I could do that. And he
Yeah.
said, well, if the Lord leads you, he goes, I think you can.
Mm.
He said, so he goes, if you'd like that, pursue it.
Yeah.
And at this point in time, we didn't have this aha moment.
Mm.
We didn't have this, gushing of the heart, burst of the heart. We just said, my wife and I said, okay, God, um, we have a door before us. We're just going to take a step and we're going to begin on this journey. And as you open the doors, we will walk through them.
Mm.
Um, Having not this clear message that this was where we're supposed to go or what
Yep.
we're going to do, we just began to do the process, and God just opened door after door after door
Mm.
to where we ended up here with Asia Pacific. And so, Amy, here's the thing: is from the age of 12 to the time we resigned our church in 2017, it was 33 years.
Yeah.
Uh, so 33 years for that call to come to completion,
Mm-hmm.
and and so I oftentimes I'll tell people this, that if uh, so going back to that first question, what
Yeah.
if somebody's interested in missions but
Mm-hmm.
they're not called? Don't don't lose the heart. Wrestle with the Lord on it.
Yeah.
And I always say is that the Lord knows who you are, He knows where you are, and He knows
Mm.
where He wants you to be, and He knows how to
Mm.
get you there.
Yeah.
And you just have to trust Him. You have to trust Him in that process.
Mm-hmm.
And and sometimes it takes 33 years for it to come to completion.
Yeah. Wow.
But He's faithful.
Yeah. That's an amazing story. So now you're working with Media Ministries, and so what does a typical week look like for you, or a typical day look like for you? Reading your newsletters, I know that there's also other things, as far as relationships with people and other ministry things that you're involved with as well. So yeah, what are the things, all the different things that you're currently involved in?
Yeah. Well, our normal day isn't super exciting. Far as it's just a normal work day. Like we have an office, we have 13
Okay.
staffs, we have two interns, and
Yeah.
then Delcy and I. So we have about 15, 16 people in the office. Um, it's a regular work day. Our work day starts at 8 in the morning. We start with the staff devo, and then we work till about 4 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
So that in and of itself is not super exciting. What we do is we find what we do is really exciting.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not the technical person, so I don't do the editing or the shooting or stuff like that. But the process, just talking through the creative process with them, come
Mm.
up with ideas. And you mentioned the idea of relationship.
Mm.
The biggest thing about missions is I think sometimes one of the biggest things I've had to learn in our first term. We're starting our second term. And our first term is that you kind of come in the idea of missions. Well, I'm going to go and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to
Mm.
lead these many people to the Lord, and we're going to do this and this
Mm.
and this. And missions is really about partnership, and missions is about
Mm.
relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And everything we do, everything we do at Asia Pacific Media is in partnership with the local church and is for the local church.
Yeah.
Uh, so we're not trying to come in and be, we're the American hero. Look at us, look at all the things that we're doing. We are saying to the local church, the national church, is here we are. How can we help you? What
Yeah.
resources are you needed? How can we assist you? And everything that we do, we're not, we have our own promotions, as far as on social media and stuff like that, and we're trying to gain audience, but we're really creating our resources for the local church to use in their own setting. And that's what we're doing. So we're trying to build relationship with leaders and superintendents.
Yeah.
And we're a regional ministry, even though we're located in Manila. We are a regional ministry. We do ministry all across the Asia Pacific.
Okay.
And so we are always reaching out, talking with people. Once you meet somebody, just trying to follow with them every once in a while on Messenger or Facebook or whatever like that, and just building a relationship. So a lot of what we do, Delcy and I, is just trying to build relationship with pastors. So we're attending conferences and going to all these, wherever pastors are gathered, we try to be there. We're just hanging out. And so again, this is God's wisdom, of why the 33 years and different things, because I
Yeah.
have this pastoral experience
Yep.
that now when I go in, I've pastored, I understand, and so I can really talk shop with these guys.
Yeah.
And so it's been a real value added to my portfolio to minister to these people, because all that relationship and identifying what they are, their needs, and supporting them in the task. Because the churches here don't have the resources that we do back home. Pastors are, um, they are um, so in love with the Lord. Uh, Most of them, if they make, man, we know pastors that, they don't even make $100 a month.
Wow.
Uh, they barely have enough. I mean, they are really just hand to mouth, just trying to get enough rice for their family, but they don't complain.
Yeah.
They're just there. Hey, this is my calling. I'm just serving the Lord. And your heart breaks for their situation, financial situation, but then you're just in awe um, of their passion and their sacrifice to fulfill the call upon their life. That they're convinced God has called me
Yeah.
to do this,
Yeah.
and you don't do that if you don't do that if if you don't know that you're called. And so to come alongside these pastors and just sit down and to have a coffee with them or to take them out for a meal and to encourage them.
Yeah.
What a beautiful thing to participate in, to see how God's hands works and moves through people's lives. And then yeah.
That's amazing. So you are creating different kind of resources for pastors. What kind of resources are they asking for, or do you just notice the need for? Is it training materials for leaders? Is it content for small groups? What does that look like?
Yeah. It is all of the above. We have done. Uh, we have had pastors ask us. Our last thing we had somebody ask us for. We were at a district council. A pastor friend that my wife actually grew up with. He was a pastor, but he was also working at a college, and he was a guidance counselor at the college. And he said, "Do you guys have any resources on bullying?" And I'm like, no. I said, we've never done anything on bullying. He said,
Yeah.
well, we at the school, we just had this event at the school. It was a really severe case of bullying. We had to shut down for 2 days and to deal
Wow.
with this. And he says, well, we're just looking for resources to kind of begin to equip our staff with and to use with the students. And I said, no, we've never done anything like that. I said, I'll tell you what, I'll go back and I'll present it to the team and I'll just see what happens.
Yeah.
So we went back and sat down with the team and said, guys, I just had this conversation with this pastor and about bullying, and it was like the Holy Spirit ignited something with them, and it's like, yes, we want to do something like this. And so they spent the next month coming up with a plan, and they put together a series on bullying, and we found so much. So it was we found some testimonies of kids who've been bullied. We talked to some
Hmm.
uh, professional counselors,
Hmm.
some pastoral counselors, biblical counselors, and we put together this comprehensive, 6 or 7 series
Hmm.
of videos dealing with bullying.
Wow.
And so we was able to go back and say, okay, here's your resource.
Yeah.
Now use it and tell us what happened. And they just
Hmm.
came back and said, this has been such a great discussion starter.
Mm.
Um, Actually, some people from the Department of Education have gotten a hold of it,
Really? Oh,
um,
that's cool.
and are possibly interested in using it in some of the public schools as a resource.
Wow.
They said this issue is the number one issue that we're dealing with in our schools
Mm.
that right now is
Yeah.
bullying, and so that's one of the most recent things that we've done.
Mm.
That was been a request. The other thing that we were requested by was the General Council of the Philippines.
Mm.
They were wanting to address some of the apologetic uh, apologetic issues, the
Mm.
faith issues that young people are facing today.
Mm.
And so we're working with them, and we're working on a TikTok series on apologetics. It's called Real Faith. Here,
Okay.
Facebook is king, so it's Facebook Reels rather than TikTok.
Okay, sure.
So it's called Real Faith,
Yep.
REEL, Real Faith.
Mm-hmm.
And so just kind of 90-second clips just on apologetics. So
Okay.
we're working with the General Council on coming up with a program with that. I think we have like
Cool.
9 of those put together. We haven't released it yet, but
Mm.
we're getting that all together.
Yeah.
But yeah, so resources like that, anything for evangelism. Our passion is really evangelistic videos.
Mm.
We are doing right now a film lab training about 34 church media teams on how to do short evangelistic videos.
Mm.
So that is what we're in the middle of right now.
Yeah.
Um, so radio broadcast, we produce a radio broadcast for the General Council.
Mm.
Um, you name it, we've done it. We've done feature length films. We have a story right now that we are praying about doing as another feature length film.
Mm.
So the budget on that is pretty scary. But that's something that's on our heart.
Yeah.
And then one thing that's kind of a new thing is during the pandemic, um, it was different here than it was in the States as far as
Mm.
the shutdown. We were basically shut down for 2 years. Schools didn't
Wow.
meet in face to face for 2 years. Churches didn't meet face to face for two
Oh
years.
my goodness.
And so my wife Delcy, she was really burdened by that because
Mm.
the school was basically, hey, come pick up the homework and come and teach your
Mm.
kids, and then bring your homework back, and the teacher will check it,
Sure.
and because due to poverty in the Philippines, a lot of parents have dropped out of school, early
Mm.
because they had to go to work,
Yeah.
and so their reading level is not very high,
Mm-hmm.
and literacy rate's pretty high. And so Delcy was really moved. It's like, how are these
Mm.
moms going to be um, teaching their kids when they can't read themselves?
Yeah.
And so since we've been back, she started this program called Reading Moms,
Mm.
and we have. The southern Philippines is the most unreached part of the Philippines.
Okay.
There's it's a high Muslim
Mm.
population rate there. There's a high communist rebel rate down there.
Mm.
It's whenever you hear anything bad happen in the Philippines, it's in this southern island. Um, it's been very violent.
Mm.
Um, it's a dangerous place. Um, and there was this pastora who was wanting to plant a church up in the mountains, and it's in the heart of the rebel
Mm.
country.
Wow.
And her heart is that I want to go plant this church, but everybody is scared to go. I'm
Yeah.
not scared. I want to go. But the village was closed
Mm.
to having a church,
Mm-hmm.
and we got connected to her, and she had a friend of hers who was uh, had a teaching background
Mm.
and was willing to teach the mothers. And so she was one of our pilot programs of starting
Mm.
this reading program for mothers.
Cool.
And so she gathered 10 moms who didn't know how to read,
Mm.
and they just began this to teach them how to read. And through this, the church was planted
Wow.
uh, in this community, in this mountain community that had been closed to the
Mm-hmm.
gospel before. And two of the moms have accepted Jesus, and they bring their kids. They
Mm.
bring their kids, while they're there. So
Sure.
it's a ministry to moms. Their kids come, so they have a little kids program. We're
That's so
able to
cool.
provide for them a little bit of rice and a can of sardines, maybe
Mm.
at the end of it, just for their families.
Hmm.
Um, we're starting that group is now starting their second batch.
Okay.
She is now planting another another group another 7 kilometers up the mountain.
Wow.
She's starting another mom's reading program. Um, they have 40 kids that come to that,
Wow.
and so 10 moms, 40 kids,
Yeah.
and a church is being planted there.
It's
And
amazing.
it's just so exciting to see what God
Hmm.
does. And all we're doing is providing some materials for them to use, a
Yeah.
little stipend. About $200 a month. We're planting 2 churches in the mountains of the southern Philippines. You know,
That's so cool. So, do you have a favorite story um, of your time? I guess I would say your time that you've been in the Philippines, that you like to share. Could be a just story about everyday life. Could be a testimony. Could be a ministry story. But what's a story that you love to share about your time on the mission fields?
yeah, I think sometimes we get the question, because we're media ministry and it's a
Mm,
little out of the box. People sometimes question the value of our ministry
mm,
or the effectiveness of our ministry.
sure.
And it was during the pandemic we had done a video, a short testimonial video of
Mm,
a lawyer here in the Philippines who had attempted to commit suicide.
wow.
And she was at a place of depression, and she was wanting to commit suicide, but she didn't want to commit suicide because then her family wouldn't get the insurance money.
Mm,
So she wanted to stage it in a way that made it look like an accident.
yeah.
So she had devised a plan in her mind, but she needed some help. And so she asked her friend if her friend would help her
Mm,
carry out this plan. And of course, her friend is horrified when she's asking her,
right.
"Will you help me
Yeah.
come up with this plan? So I'm going to kill myself so my parents can get the money."
Wow.
And she's just horrified. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, "I will help you,
Hmm.
but here's my condition.
Mm.
Um, I will help you, but before we carry out this plan, you have to go to church with me." And so she agreed.
Yeah.
And you know the story. She goes to church. God intervenes. God changes her life, and she doesn't carry out the plan,
Yeah.
and she's just transformed. Her whole
Mm.
life has just been transformed.
Hmm.
So we created the story on that.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest with you, when we released it, it wasn't anything that was it wasn't a big hit. I mean, it was just our average viewership. It didn't really spike or anything like that.
Mm.
And I really kind of had forgotten about that.
Hmm.
And it was late last year, early this year, we just get this message pop up on our social media feed. And it was somebody who was just reaching out and saying, "Hey guys, I just want you to know I never watch religious material online,
Mm.
but I had this video pop up, this video of this
Mm-hmm.
lawyer giving her testimony. And I watched that, and it has changed my life because I
Wow.
was getting ready to take my own life.
Wow.
And and that video has changed my life, and I have
Yeah.
gone to church, and I've given my life to Jesus as
Hmm.
a result. And I just thought that you guys might like to know what you making that video has done.
Yeah.
And so that's just one story of
Mm-hmm.
that I like to share. And it just what our tagline for our ministry is His message multiplied,
Mm-hmm.
and we multiply His message by training workers, equipping the church to use media and technology effectively. But we also multiply the message by creating resources. And the beautiful thing about the online world is that it's there.
Mm.
And I can create something 3 years ago and forget
Yeah.
about it. but the Holy Spirit knows that it's
Mm-hmm.
there, and the Holy Spirit still leads and directs. And
Yeah.
even the Holy Spirit even used the algorithm of YouTube, to put it upon somebody's feed
Right.
who needs it. And so,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, just the Holy Spirit is so awesome. And so that message is there. It's multiplied. It's reaching more
Mm-hmm.
people than we could ever imagine.
Yeah.
Um, just because it's there.
Yep. Absolutely. That's a great story. So, with your, as you mentioned, your 33-year kind of training ground to get to where you are now, that certainly, I'm sure, and as you shared, and I'm sure in ways that you hadn't shared, um, changed you and shaped you and refined you. But this, first term and now starting on the second term in Manila, how has that experience even further changed you?
Oh, living in a different country changes you. I mean, it stretches you so much. Of course, you
Mm-hmm.
become more patient.
Mm.
It's humbling. It is so humbling. Back home, I'm college educated. I'm a communicator. I can get up in front of a crowd and I can express myself, uh, confidently. Uh, Maybe not the most eloquently, but I can get up in front of a group of people. And you move to a different country and you begin. It is so humbling.
Mm.
Learning the new language,
Yeah.
uh, and to now all of a sudden uh, you speak like a kindergartner. You can't complete sentences. You can't
Mm-hmm.
express yourself. It is so humbling,
Mm.
in that regard. But then it really helps. It really works on your patience.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, Things just aren't as efficient here.
Mm.
Uh, Traffic is terrible.
Mm.
Like tonight, it's this. We were picking up some friends to go to a meeting, and it took us an hour to go 6 blocks.
Oh my goodness.
Um, so it was just, the traffic is terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is easy.
Mm.
You're used to back home, having your list of things to do. I'm going to go to the post office. I'm going to go to the bank. I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to do this. And,
Mm-hmm.
you might accomplish 7 or 8 things in the afternoon. And here, you're lucky if you get two done.
Yeah.
And it's just everything takes so long.
Mm.
So it's a challenge on that regard.
Yeah.
The people are beautiful. The place is
Mm.
beautiful. The food is wonderful.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a stretch. It definitely stretches you, and it gives you a
Mm-hmm.
different perspective on things.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. So we know there's a lot of traffic, but what else can you tell us about the place where you live?
Yeah. Well, specifically Manila. Manila
Mm.
is the largest city in the Philippines. It's
Mm-hmm.
about 15 million people. It's the most populated. It's the most densely populated city in the world.
Mm.
There are
Wow.
parts of the city where there are 200,000 people per square mile.
Wow.
So it's just people just upon people.
Yep.
Um, and so there's a high degree of poverty.
Mm.
Manila itself is a city of contrast. It's a world-class city. I mean, we have
Mm.
skyscrapers everywhere,
Yeah.
towers everywhere, nice buildings. Um, like where I live here, I have 6 malls
Hmm.
walk within 6 blocks, 10
Yeah.
blocks of me. I have 6 different malls.
Hmm.
Gucci, Omega,
Mm-hmm.
all of these fashion brands. But
Yeah.
right next to it is going to be a shanty town.
Mm.
So it's a city of contrast where you have these
Mm-hmm.
symbols of power, symbols of wealth, symbols
Yeah.
of things, and then right next, just abject poverty.
Yep.
And so it's just a real city of contrast.
Mm.
Um, the countryside itself, the Philippines is a beautiful country, 7,000 islands, some of the best beaches in the world,
Mm-hmm.
palm trees, great food. It's a beautiful place. And like I said, the people are just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just an amazing people.
Yeah. Hmm. So how have some of those cultural pieces, maybe some of those, traditions or different things that are just, part of the fabric of the Philippines. How has that
Mm.
affected your ministry? How does that affect people's receptiveness to the gospel? I mean, you touched on it a little bit when you were talking about the lady that wanted to go plant the church in the mountains. But even in a city, I would assume that it's quite a bit different where you are. But even so, how does some of those cultural pieces, play into what you do?
Yeah. Okay. Um, so the Philippines is also it's a very religious culture.
Mm,
Uh, and there's basically two parts of the Philippines. The northern two-thirds is uh, over 80% Roman Catholic.
mm,
The southern island is predominantly Muslim. Um, but the Roman Catholicism here isn't the same Catholicism that you'd have back in the States.
mm,
It's a very mystical
hmm,
folk Catholicism that is really mixed with animistic beliefs.
yeah.
And so they'll go to mass, and probably the best people often say, well, how can you? Uh, so they'll go to mass, but then during the week they'll go to the witch doctor
Mm,
uh, or something like that. And people say, well, how can you justify that?
yeah.
And probably the best way to kind of explain that is um, the Catholic Church uh, doesn't necessarily have a great theology for everyday life, as far as the provision of God, the intervention of God, God
Mm,
meeting needs. It's so Filipinos in general would look at Catholicism as a means to deal with the eternal.
mm,
Okay, but their everyday life, uh, I cover
sure.
my base by go to mass,
Mm-hmm.
go to the Catholic Church, have my saint.
Mm,
I cover my bases eternally to go to heaven.
yeah.
But for my everyday needs, my crops, my kids, my job, I go to my ancestral spirits. I go to these
Mm,
other things, and that's how they kind of do it. And the Catholicism kind of plays into that, as far as with its saints and stuff like that. So basically, they've taken the background of the Philippines and they're animistic because they believe in a spirit world.
yeah.
They believe in territorial spirits. Everything is spiritual.
Mm,
And so what they've kind of done then is those spirits have just kind of replaced those with saints.
mm,
And so they look to the saints then for this and this and this. And so there's a real religious um, culture here.
mm,
So it's very easy actually here to in Manila and in the north to talk to people about Jesus.
okay.
They're familiar with Jesus, they know Jesus, but their Jesus is a false Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
and their application of Jesus is very different.
Yeah.
But there's some very strong cultural aspects to it.
Mm,
Um, just a case in point, they have the Spanish were bringing over a ship and it caught on fire,
hmm,
and the only thing that survived from this ship was a statue of Jesus,
hmm.
and Jesus is all burnt.
Wow.
And so they call it the Black Nazarene,
Hmm.
and they have this Black Nazarene on display in one part of the city, and twice a year they will parade that that burnt statue from one
Mm,
church, and they'll parade it to the other end of the city
yeah.
towards second place. And the city shuts down, and there are millions of people that will line the streets
Hmm.
and try to touch it, trying
Yeah.
to see it, because if they can see the Black Nazarene, if they can touch the Black Nazarene, they'll be blessed for the year. Their sins will be forgiven for the
Hmm.
year. And it's just uh, it's demonic, it's cultish, it's
Mm,
demonic. And, so we are always trying to answer and try to penetrate that worldview.
mm-hmm.
And types of things or some stuff that drives us in our ministry. Those are the types of questions we're asked, that we're
Mm-hmm.
trying to answer the
Mm-hmm.
questions, the spiritual. So it's a driving factor in what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Well, our time's wrapping up a little bit, but that being said, how can we be supporting you? Do you have, specific things that we can be doing or praying about? How can we be making a difference in, the Pacific Media Ministry and reading moms and all of the work that you're doing over in the Philippines?
But we can't. It almost sounds like a trite saying, and it's really not.
Mm,
Um, you know, prayer is really the key. Everything we do,
mm-hmm.
everything we face is really spiritual. It really is.
Yeah.
from learning language to facing these cultural questions, to planting churches, to encouraging pastors. It's all spiritual in nature. It's all got a spiritual base to it,
Mm-hmm.
even though it just seems so on the surface, but it's really all spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
And so that your prayers matter, they really do matter.
Yeah.
Um, and we appreciate so much the financial support,
Mm.
that Bethel's Rock gives us and supporting us monthly, and we appreciate that, of course, immensely. But really, more than that, we desperately need your prayers,
Mm.
to stand in the face of a dark world
Yeah.
that's in need of the gospel, needs to be
Mm-hmm.
boldly proclaimed, um, in creative ways.
Mm.
Um, you know, for the provision that we're needing for our projects,
Mm-hmm.
God provides, God is faithful, but that's a spiritual thing,
Yeah.
and so really your prayers, and then again, kind of going back to that first question, is
Mm.
you help us. Every person helps us whenever um, they participate in the missions endeavor
Mm.
in whatever way that they can, in
Yeah.
whatever way that they do. Again, whether they're called or just sent, whenever they participate, it's anytime they promote the mission
Mm.
of spreading the gospel,
Mm-hmm.
they help us.
Yeah.
You know, whether it may not help us directly, but
Yeah.
indirectly it does.
True.
Just the awareness,
Mm-hmm.
the heart for mission, the willingness to serve, the willingness
Mm-hmm.
to give, committing to pray. Um, that helps. That helps everybody. That lifts all boats,
Mm-hmm.
and so I can't underestimate the value of that. So continue to serve, continue to pray. When the Lord allows and provides, give.
Yeah.
Um, and that is how you can help us. But we would just want to thank you for thank you for your prayers.
Mm.
Thank you for your financial support. Thank you for doing something like this and just the awareness of missions. And um, I pray it's a blessing to your people.
Mm.
I pray that the the fire of missions is stoked in their
Yeah.
hearts.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us and share about your ministry and your life on the mission field. We're so honored to have the opportunity to partner with you and support the work that God is doing through you. And we look forward to continuing to stay in contact with you, reading your updates, staying in touch, and seeing what God continues to do in the Philippines.